I absolutely refuse to sit at a table or ask to sit at a table that I built. I'm astonished. I have been watching moms over the social media networks in the last couple days crying out at the top of their lungs, and their hearts are broken. Their spirits are crushed. Why? Because their children that they carried for 9 months, some of these moms were really sick too and had hyperemesis. I had hyperemesis with all 3 of my children. Do you know what that means? That means that I vomited from morning till night for 9 months with a bleeding esophagus every time. Do you think that's fun, guys? Do you ever want to try it? And especially with no medication that you can take for the nausea, because if you do, it may harm the baby, so you suffer. 3 times I did that for my children. Brought them into the world. We love them. We nurture them.
3 times I did that for my babies. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to be snarky sparky, like on acid. 9 months we carried you for 9 months, and some of us had bleeding. What the actual, are you joking me right now? Fuck. So you choose to get pregnant, carry a child. You didn't choose having a rough pregnancy. However, you did. You had that baby. And you're going to try to tell people you did that for them, a baby you never met before. Like, are you picking up what I'm putting down? That's what I would like to know in the comment section. And then after you did it the first time, and did you know before you had the baby that you were going to have to carry the baby for 9 months? Did you read a book? Were you prepared? And then you had that happen once and you decided to do it again. Sacrifice for the baby. No, you wanted to have children and a family. And then you decided that what you went through physiologically, because I don't know what else is in here, I don't remember, to hold that over the heads of the children that you chose to create because for whatever reason, you wanted a family. And after the second time you went, oh, that was so much fun. I mean, bleeding esophagus aside, I'll do it again. Okay. There's more.
Take care of them when they're sick. We stay up all night with them. We pray for them. We take them to the ER every time they get wounded or hurt, break their leg or their arm.
So you bring 3 children in her case into the world, and oh no, you're forced to deal with the consequences of what having children is and actually have to do your job. And you want a medal for that, or a lifetime ownership paper over your child, now adult daughter or adult son, or sons or daughters, because I don't know what her mix is. You want that to be your free pass for ownership forever. And when that's weakening, you're going to pull out, I had a bleeding esophagus to bring you into this world, and I did it anyway because I loved you so much. No, you fucking didn't, because you didn't know the baby yet. Snarky Sparky. I'm a little speechless. Oh, and we stayed up all night. Well, first of all, I don't know about you like people out there. Well, I know about some of you. My mother never stayed up all night with me. She did stay out all night with other people, not up with me. She also would sleep endlessly taking pills and drinking. She wasn't an alcoholic, but she did like the pill thing, the uppers and the downers, to be skinny and to be able to go party and husband hunt and all the things, while she left me in my crib unfed and unchanged. So let's not act like every mother shows up. And the mothers who do show up, that have relationships with their adult sons and their adult daughters, they have those relationships because they went beyond meeting their legal obligation to that child into meeting their emotional obligation to that child or those children. They formed bonds with them, and those who didn't and still ended up in relationships with their adult sons and daughters have done so because they treat them like the human beings that they are and don't demand gratitude and sympathy for their sacrifice and being indebted to them. That's the difference. One of the differences. There's many differences. Okay, let's continue.
We do everything we can to help these kids. We work hard so they can get educated. You know, we send them off to school when they're 5. And we do all these things for our kids. We pick them up, take them to sports functions, to practices. We do all these things for these kids. And then they have the audacity to cut us out. Are you kidding me? I'm astonished. I never dreamed I'd live to see this day. I was raised in a home with 5 siblings and 2 beautiful, loving parents. And I never, ever dreamed of cutting them out of my life or stealing my children from knowing their grandparents. I still talk.
She is such a good person. She never, I'm surprised she didn't say abandoned, cut off her parents or abandoned them. And bullshit, by the way, because at the end of the day, well, not bullshit, she didn't, cut them off or whatever, but bullshit that she had this idyllic childhood, because you don't talk this way about the things that you should be doing naturally for your children, because it's part of the process of raising children, bringing them into the world, the pleasures that we take and seeing their accomplishments and being able to send them to their dream school for those people who are able to do that and do all the supportive things. Like, as parent, I'm a parent of 3, a grandmother of 2, and I loved doing all the things. And I've never leveraged the things because there's nothing to leverage. My choice to bring them into the world and have to alter my life to accommodate my choice and meet my responsibilities, well, that's just life. I could have chosen not to have children and not sacrifice. I didn't sacrifice. I don't look at it that way. But like, look how perfect I am. The way that you're speaking, there's something that went sideways, and obviously you don't go to therapy to figure out what that is. And so maybe it was really normalized for her to hold all the things that your parents did over the head, like it happened to her. And now she's carrying it through, not understanding that we don't play that game anymore. We don't allow for that kind of manipulation anymore. We've grown as people. We've become more emotionally aware. We, also expect to have our boundaries respected and things like that. And who knows what her dynamic was. And a lot of times when I see stuff like this, by the way, they don't cut the parents off, but they move, a 5-hour plane ride away. So they see them at Christmas. I'm a good daughter now, kind of thing. So there's so many pieces that get left, conveniently to the side, the whole omission thing. All right, let's see what else she's got. But wait, there's more.
I still talk to my siblings to this day, and I wish to God my mom and dad were here that I could talk to and go to for support, but they're gone.
I wish that I had a relationship with my mother's son, but he's the golden child, and so that wasn't a choice. He made the choice to cut me off when I cut my grandparents off because they were child emmers. When I cut my mother off, he wasn't really talking to me very much at that point anyway. And when I disclosed that I had been SA'd to him, he was the only person at that point in time I told in my group of relatives, they're not my family. He called me a liar over and over and over again. I was in my early 20s and I was devastated. And I kept saying to him, like, what do I have to gain from telling you this? Why would I lie about this? And it took me years to figure out the reason he reacted that way was because, one, he didn't want to deal with that. And two, or maybe this is number one, he was taught I was the problem in the family from the time that I was born. He's 5.5 years older. He was taught I'm the family liar. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew that because that's what my mother created my image to be, and it stuck. And so later on, I figured out that that's where he probably was at that time. Now, I am sure he knows I'm not lying. And I'm sure he'll never do anything about it. And my door's closed to him anyway, because I don't need people in my life that betray me like that. I just don't. And there's been many other betrayals along the way. So it wasn't just that one thing, which is, I mean, somebody could have a bad reaction, which that goes beyond a bad reaction in my opinion, and then come back in a short while later and go, I am horrified that I did that to you. I will never do that again. Change their behavior, take ownership, make it about you, not you forgiving them, that kind of thing. And repair can be had. This is not that though.
I'll never get to do that again.
Oh yeah, because I want to be in the world without a parent or parents. Yeah, this was my choice. My choice was to be born to somebody who really didn't give a damn about me and who actually went out of their way to hurt me. That was my choice, to not have parents that I could mourn when they die. Well, I mourned my dad. My dad was a separate issue. There's videos about my dad under the dad tab, so you can all look there. Dad's, cause I had stepfathers and the whole thing. It does devastate me that when my mother dies, I won't mourn her because she's not a mom I can mourn. That's another loss to me. That's another milestone of life to be able to mourn your parents because you love them so much and actually miss them. I don't know. I'll never know what that's like in the case of having a mom. I'll never know what it's like to have a mom, period. I know what it's like to have a birth giver who carried me for 9 months.
So you see, kids, and you young adults in your 30s and 40s and 20s, that are cutting out your parents. You need to really think hard about what you're doing. Did we have disagreements? Did I disagree with my mom and dad? Of course I did. But I never would think of cutting them out. Why? Why? It's a disease that needs crushed. You guys are breaking your parents' spirits. And one day you're going to answer to Almighty God for
the guilt. Can you imagine her as your parent? The guilt, the sacrifice. That is how this woman parented. And that's how she's trying to parent all the estranged adult kids, you kids out there, young adults. So there's a diminishment there. And she went up to the age of 40. I was like sad because I was hoping she'd say 59. That's me. But no, I'm not young a parent. I'm not a young adult. Like as if a person who has a certain age attached to them doesn't have the ability to have real, valid opinions and feelings. That's what this vibe is given off. And the guilt. I think she's about to mention a little religion here. Let's go. Let's see.
God for what you've done. You're not only harming yourself, you're harming your children. And you're harming your spiritual life. You need to get right with God. And you need to go talk to your parents. Because one day they're not going to be there any longer. God bless you.
I do check the obits for my mother. Because I know I'll get a sense of relief when she dies. Because that's what happened when my grandparents died. And I think I'll have that same thing. And like I said, that sense of mourning yet another thing she took away from me because of the monster that she is. Like I'm stunned. She kind of stuns me. There's more. There's more of her. Ready? Let's get into it.
For all of the kids that have decided to cut their parents out of their life. Today's conversation is on the beauty of grandparents. You know, I remember my grandma from the time, oh my God, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I remember her smell. I remember the way she held me. I remember the way her house looked, the way her house smelled. I remember the treat bags that she used to make for us kids before we left. Me and my 5 siblings would all line up in the kitchen and wait for our special bag. I remember my grandma with great love and gratitude. I remember all of it. I remember her baking bread with my...
Oh, that hit hard. Yeah, I remember my grandmother's smell too. I remember her perfume, and I remember being a little girl playing with the bottles and thinking how beautiful they were. I lived with my grandparents. I remember my grandfather bringing home a kitten for me in his pocket. I remember the food that my grandmother used to make that I loved. I also remember my grandmother bringing me into the bed. She had nothing on, for a love up, and this love-starved child whose mother was God knows where, she would cuddle me against her body that had nothing on. Oh, and there was a requirement that I also had nothing on. And then I remember her turning over and going to sleep and leaving me with my grandfather. Yeah.
My mom and lining up the bread on the tables and the noodles, the homemade noodles. These are memories that I can cherish and hang on to in my heart that my parents gave me. It was a gift to know my grandma, both my grandmas. You see, guys, when you're cutting off your parents, you're also harming your children. You are harming your children in a way that you can't even imagine.
Okay. As someone who cut off my mother and my grandparents, I know I should have let my grandparents have access to my kids, right? My kids were like 6 and 2. My youngest wasn't born yet. It was over 30 years ago. And especially my son and my youngest daughter who never met them, you can't miss what you don't know. So for those two, they missed nothing. For my daughter, who was like 6 years old, she missed those people. She did. She loved them. And over time, she didn't think about them so much anymore because she had parents, myself, my ex-husband, who filled her love cup. And fortunately, we were enough. My daughter did go back in adulthood because she had some memories that were fond and formed relationships with those people in the family and realized that they were toxic. And some of them died and some of them she went no contact with all on her own. And my children knew all through growing up bits and pieces as they were age appropriate. And they really were not in any way, shape, or form, and they'll say it as adults. They are 33 to 42 years old now. My grandchildren also will say the same thing. They're 19 and 16 now. They don't feel a sense of loss because they didn't have those grandparents and great-grandparents in their lives. They just didn't, because they didn't need those other relationships. Would it have been wonderful to have grandparents that were what she describes? Yeah, definitely. I would have much preferred that. I felt very alone a lot of the time because I didn't have that. And I felt sad that I couldn't give that extended family to my children. For anyone out there, though, who's worried about this kind of fear and guilt garbage, there are many, 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 many of us who raised our children in love with our value system and our healthy role modeling, who did, I don't want to say fine. I think we knocked it out of the ballpark. That doesn't mean it's perfect. Nothing is perfect. But it just, like, in terms of our children not feeling like they didn't have something, that wasn't a thing. My kids have said that, and I just had a conversation about this with my youngest daughter, probably like a month or so ago, maybe a little longer. And we were talking about that very thing. And she said, I know that other people had big families. I know that you came from a big family. And she said, yeah, it looks like it would have been fun and I would have liked to have it, but it doesn't make me feel like I missed out on something. And I think that says a lot. And she did miss out on something, which I pointed out. All the garbage. And she's like, no, I know I missed out on that, kind of thing. So.
Because you are stealing from them the most precious thing that God gives to us. God created families in His image. God designed the family, and Satan is destroying it. He is using his power right now to destroy families in this nation. And it is the saddest thing I have ever witnessed. I never ever dreamed I would even live to see this happening. You cut your parents off. You are harming your children.
Well, I guess we didn't do it. It's Satan. Absolved. And I love how and I thank you, those of you who are well read in terms of the Bible and things like that, who consistently point out, and some of you have done it in very expansive ways, because I've never read the Bible. I'm also Jewish. So, but that's neither here nor there. Where people have said, before it says honor thy mother and father, it says things to the effect of don't bring out, hurt in your children. I can't remember how it was worded. I read one yesterday and I'm just a little brain fried from making videos right now. And so here she is talking about God and Satan, but she's not talking about, what's actually written in the scriptures that she so clearly represents or misrepresents, kind of thing, right? I'm just like, wowza. I don't know how many children she has. I don't know her estrangement story. And that's another thing. A lot of these types of, I think she is she's estranged, because I saw something. A lot of these, in her videos, or a screenshot or something, not a screenshot, one of the memes, whatever. A lot of these estranged parents still talk about how bad we are and how we've ripped everybody's hearts out. And I have yet to see any that are in this sort of camp and this sort of, spreading this type of rhetoric. I have never, and if you find a video, send it to me. Or tell me the creator, because don't tag me in it because they'll block me. But if you find one, I would love to see it, where they talk about the arguments in terms of the content of the arguments that they had with their adult son or adult daughter, where they talk about the actual things that they did that caused harm, where they talk about how the conversations rolled out, what was said. None of that. None of it. And there's this one woman named Chris. I'll in the description of this video, I'll do a link over. You can copy paste, whatever, where she goes, my son wrote me a letter, but out of protection for him, I'm not going to expose it. No, you're protecting yourself because you don't want people to know what actually happened that you are refusing to take accountability for. And this one's next level. So, if it's Satan's work, then we're all off the hook, aren't we?
You are stealing great joy from them and memories that they will.
Why isn't she talking about what was stolen from us? Like our childhoods, our sanity, our mental health. No, it's all one-sided. So she sacrificed to bring us into the world. Greatly, no medication and bleeding and all the things. She did everything, the soccer and the this and the that and the all the stuff. And nowhere in their notice does she talk about how she laid a foundation of trust and care with her children. She talks about the mechanics of the things that she did to sacrifice. And then she wonders, well, no, it's Satan's work, but I'm going to stay with that for a while. But she wonders, like, or does she wonder where the breakdown happened? Well, you're in no way addressing how you met your children's emotional needs to form that bonded relationship where they wouldn't need to cut you off. Stealing from the grandparents, you're stealing from your own children, you're stealing. What about my stolen childhood? Are you going to give that back to me? Because if you are, then maybe I'll reconsider where I am, as if you could, right?
Will never have in their life. What right, ask yourself, do you have to steal the greatest love those kids could ever have with their grandparents? You better reconsider, guys, because you're going to answer to God. This is something you can't mess with. We're to honor our mom and dad. We're to love them and cherish them. Why? Because they brought us here and they took care of us. They loved and nurtured us and they were there for us. Your parents are the only people that are ever going to have your back. And I guarantee you, if you go to those parents today, they're going to welcome you back like the prodigal son did. The prodigal son was welcomed back by his father. You all should go read the prodigal son's story in the Bible. A mother's love is eternal. It is the same. No matter how mad your mom makes you, no matter what your mom says, she has eternal love in her soul for you. You guys are bonded and connected for all eternity. She's the vessel God used to bring you into this world. So think about it, guys, really hard. Who are you harming? You're not hurting your mom. You're not hurting your father. You're basically destroying your children and yourself. So you should really reconsider what you're doing. God bless you.
And then she has the audacity after saying that to say, God bless you. Are you kidding? Oh my God. And they're the only people who had your back. Yeah, my mother had my back with a knife in it. And she mostly did it where I could see it coming because she wanted to see the fear in my eyes, right? And when she said about eternally connected, I'm like, please, for the love of everything in the universe, no. Hurting ourselves. I don't know. My CPTSD has never been more under control in my life than it is right now. And I've spent the last 30 years not being re-traumatized by that person who was sticking that knife in my back. I bet you if you went to them, they would. That's also not true. That's not true. So there are a lot of estranged adult sons and daughters. I'm trying to stay away from the kid and child word, who do go back in, and they go back in the first 3 years many times. It happens a lot. And every time they go back in, when it doesn't stick, when it doesn't resolve and repair and all the things, a lot of times it is because the adult son and daughter have evolved and grown and they've gone to therapy and they're trying to bring that healing back into the family unit, which is not their responsibility, but they're still trying to do it. And they find out that nothing has changed there, and either they estrange again or the parent who is the bigger of the perpetrator, will discard them. My mother did that to me when I wanted a relationship with her 17 years later. She showed up in my life 17 years into the no contact. And she said, do you want to work on our relationship? I love you. I miss you. She embraced me. Of course, there was an audience. And I went right back into little girl mode, not even paying attention to what she was doing because I was so desperate for her love. And she so rarely gave me that kind of affection. Because affection, I'm doing it that way because that's not affection. That's manipulation and grooming and hoovering and all the things, right? And I gave her a free pass of, yeah, I want a relationship. We never have to talk about the past, all the things. And she discarded me because she recognized that she wasn't going to be able to treat me or abuse me in the ways that she had throughout my childhood because I was different. I was self-assured and I was stronger. And while I had a moment of needing her, that wasn't going to erase who I now was and would never be to her again. So oftentimes the kids do go back in. They do pick up the phone. They do the thing. And when the parent recognizes that they've lost control, they discard. And that's a pretty devastating feeling to have happen. And it's really common. What's your story? Drop it in the comments section if you experience, like when you went back in. I'm sure there's some people who never do. However, the majority, as I see in my therapy practice and as I see just out in the world in our community, most people do go back and try again. And even the estranged parents admit that they come back in. However, their narrative is, I've, apologized, and they're screaming at me and all the things. And again, they never, as far as I've seen so far, because I don't really like absolutes, address what it is that they were getting yelled at over or what the content of the conversation was. They just, paint it with the brush that serves their narrative. One more with her. And who's going to tell her? Someone really should tell her where to put the camera. It's driving me crazy. It's I don't know why. I think I'm being a little bit of a petty bitch over that one, but hey, whatever. That's how I'm feeling today. She struck me, I don't have more video of her. Sorry about that. However, let's read a few of these together, shall we? When they go silent, they want power. I guess we're the they. How is that powerful? Oh, because when you had us under your control, because we didn't have anywhere else to go, because we were under the age of 18 and gave us a silent treatment, and we did everything we could to be good little children, you recognized that was your power, that you could do the silent treatment and get what you wanted, right? See the projection in there? Because what power do we have being silent? I agree there's power in silence. It should never be weaponized into a silent treatment though. So for example, a while back, a friend of mine was going through a divorce and their ex was really harassing them, and they would engage in the text back and forth and things like that. And they were going through the divorce. Lawyers were already involved, all the things. And I did say to my friend, I said, sometimes the most powerful weapon we have is doing nothing. And, letting the lawyers handle it and not engaging and not keeping the ball rolling, playing possum, doing nothing. And in that case, it is powerful. And it's not powerful in the way that they like to paint it. As if we've walked away and we're so happy they're grieving. And half of them, my mother's definitely not grieving. And even if they are, their emotional well-being was never our responsibility as children, and certainly isn't our responsibility as adult sons and daughters. We're just not responsible for other people's emotions. Are we responsible for the relationships that we choose to have, to be kind and caring and compassionate and all those things, when maybe we have to say something that the other person might find hurtful? Maybe we have to there was conflict and we have to bring something in the room to resolve it, and it might be sticky and it might hurt them in that moment. Or, maybe it's ending a romantic relationship or something like that. And, you're adulting in that way. You're not responsible for how the other person feels. You can't sacrifice your life out of that responsibility. However, these types of parents, that's exactly what they want, right? Because they don't care about how their adult sons and adult daughters feel. They care about being in control, large and in charge, and right. Period. And the ones who do care, those are the ones that actually go to therapy and work to do better. By the way, not every estranged parent was abusive. Some just stopped apologizing for things they did and didn't do. Yeah. So some just stopped asking for forgiveness, because please forgive me is not an apology. That has this laced all over it. And for things they did and didn't do. So they stopped trying to placate and admit to, validate things that they didn't even believe that they were a part of, which tells you that if you don't own it, you don't change the behavior. And when they realized that it wasn't going to work, that manipulation, that non-apology, they stopped. All right. And abusive. Not every estranged parent was abusive. It's not about whether every estranged parent was abusive or not. Some people pass down trauma and they caused harm. And by definition, that is kind of abusive. I mean, I passed down trauma. I didn't abuse my children. However, I caused harm. So it's kind of a little bit of a sticky, and in my feeling in mind is my adult son and my adult daughters, they get to define what their experience was because it's them who felt whatever they felt as a recipient of whatever my parenting or my behavior was. I don't get to decide whether or not it was abusive. If they feel that they were abused at any point in time because I did something, that's their experience. It's valid. This is the same type of parent that defines, I'm sure, abuse as only being two things, and one is physical and the other is CSA. And calling a kid stupid probably is no big deal to them, or maybe they didn't do that, but they did the other guilt and manipulation and, silent treatment things, which, by the way, that is abusive. All right, one more. You want to know why going no contact with your parents is a trend now? No, she didn't. Because it's Bible prophecy. Welcome to the last days. Oh no, the sky is falling. You know what? I don't even have the comments around that. I'm going to leave it there. What do you think though? Oh, tell me you're an estranged parent who's never going to repair your relationship with your adult son or daughter without telling me. That's what's sad. That's the saddest part about all this, is that so many of these behaviors are repairable and they are choices. And it is tragic that they don't choose to do better. They rather gain attention on the internet being the victim of us. It's like the craziest thing ever. It's the estranged parents are just hitting a new low of this common attention-seeking behavior. And you know what? Like, they love the internet for that. They get to smear campaign us. We can't defend ourselves, or choose not to. And, there are a lot of adult sons and daughters out there who monitor their parents' stuff because they like do some damaging things in the things that they're saying and the slander and all of that. And it is causing them harm now. Like, it's still abusive, right? So that's somebody's parent who's doing that to their adult son or daughter, and they think nothing of it. It's just, I'm just like, I'm losing my, I'll see you soon. Thank you for being here. Sorry for the ramble. Just one of those days.